October 12, 2022, 9:11 a.m. Chapter 8. Here we explain Article 1, Section 13 of the Tennessee State Constitution, where unnecessary rigor is prohibited.
Unnecessary rigor prohibited. At the northernmost point of Tennessee between the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers, land between the lakes National Recreation Area juts down into Stewart County. Bordered by Kentucky on the north, Montgomery County on the east, Houston County on the south and Henry County on the west. The county's seat of government is in Dover, Tennessee. Setting on the Cumberland River, Dover is as well the most populous city with 1,442 citizens as recorded in the 2010 census. Cumberland City is the second most populated city with 311 citizens in 2010. The county's population in 2010 was 13,324, so that is 11,571 who are more independent than others who reside in cities, or 89.15%. With 459 square miles, there are about 29 citizens per square mile. European Americans settled in the area in 1803, where part of Montgomery County was created into the county named for Duncan Stewart. He was an early legislator in North Carolina, Tennessee, and Mississippi. With Goodspeed's account, the county was settled by North Carolinians through land grants issued to Revolutionary War veterans starting around 1795. By the height of hostilities before the Civil War, Stewart County was a hotbed of activity for the Royal Assembly of Greater Men, and on Robert Duncan Stewart fell the reins of sovereignty.
One thing we must remember is that Stewart County is a massive tract of land with a national recreation area which connects and supersedes the boundaries of Tennessee and Kentucky. We don't have an accurate number as to how many blacks lived in the county, but just as all the 14-point bucks stay out of sight until the hunter doesn't have his gun, so too did black and white society not mix. Sure, whites knew that there were blacks in the backwoods, but as long as blacks didn't harm whites, everything went smoothly. There were lines that greater men did not cross, not just out of fear that someone may get hurt or worse, but because it wasn't worth the time or effort. Being busy molding typical slave's moral posture, a gentleman, a scholar, a prize fighter, a slave, and greater man, Robert Duncan Stewart was better known as the representative. The manner by which slaves became greater men was by proving themselves equal to whites in humility and writing their legislators in an attempt to influence what they would where they could. They also were expected to remain silent in public, allowing their representative to speak in their stead for their best interests. All anyone wanted was peace and prosperity, where the former is assured by one's unity and subordination to a representative, and the latter is guaranteed with our implied contract with time.
Being a greater man wasn't just about being able to read, write, fight, marry and breed just to support and encourage the same. Members of any royal assembly were role models in their communities, as they were so far assimilated to the ways of empowered white men in society, they knew how to ensure success for those they represented. Partly it was because their ability to read improved their vocabulary and pronunciation, partly because an ability to communicate adds to one's moral posture, and the other part is the individual character that enhanced the charisma of oneself and the whole. So, just as one's athletic ability adds to the likelihood that the team will win, the moral fibers and ethical consideration ensures that each royal assembly of whichever county will follow the Grand Consistory of Tennessee should the call to arms be given. No, everyone can't be in the royal assembly, as some business is public, some private, and yet others secret. Many knew of the royal assemblies in their counties, but didn't know how to fight, couldn't meet the standards for admittance, or weren't recommended as beneficial by other greater men. It was like admission to the militia. You don't call them. They call you.
On June 8, 1861, Tennessee became the 11th and final state to secede from the Union. Fort Henry was at a key position in defending the state and closing off the Tennessee River to Union forces. On February 6, 1862, Brigadier General Ulysses Grant and his forces bombarded Fort Henry on the east bank of the Tennessee River. Confederate forces had to escape to Fort Donelson 12 miles to the east with about 2,500 troops. This was short-lived, as on February 16, 1862, Fort Donelson would fall to Union forces. At the Battle of Fort Donelson, Brigadier General Ulysses Grant forced Simon Bolivar Buckner of the same rank to accept an unconditional surrender. Kentucky and a large part of Tennessee would fall under Union control. Grant would be promoted to Major General after taking this fort in Dover, Tennessee, and gaining the nickname Unconditional Surrender.
That unconditional surrender is accompanied by the prohibition of unnecessary rigor, because just as whites couldn't abuse blacks for the threat of greater men, neither would they allow them to do one another as such. The position of the representative is of the humanitarian, as they are the most gentile of the vicious animals in humankind. There is no need to beat dead horses. After one wins a battle, there is no need to place the captured before a firing squad. There must be a point past which we will not go. We shouldn't dislike an individual to the point of unnecessary rigor, as the golden rule allows us to sleep well at night, while keeping others tossing and turning because of what they have done with negative intentions. How much unnecessary rigor used determines how civilized the victor may be, just as its opposite shows one's savageness. How much self-control must one need to stand down immediately after emotions have built up to defend one's or take another's life? We are not killing machines, though in times of war or any type of battle, we have to program ourselves as such. The representative lived by the golden rule, as whoever was against him was just an obstacle in his way of success. he was fighting failure where his opponents felt, if they had a chance to fight him, they had a better chance of defeating him, because he wouldn't go to the extremes others may have. But there were a lot of contenders to the title where just because some wanted they seldom fought him. That's all this session. See you next week.